I move that the question be now put.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. Mr Chair, I'm rising along with my colleagues to take a call on this bill. And as Carol Beaumont was saying just before me, the whole purpose of the Act is at odds with actually the principle. This amends the Employment Relations Act. And for those of us who were union officials or workers in 1991, we remember the Employment Contracts Act and the havoc that caused. In fact, if I'm really honest, Mr Chair, it was the Employment Contracts Act that inspired me or drove me to become interested in politics and to stand for Parliament. But if I go back to Clause 3, because I know you'd like me to do that, Mr Chair, that it's amending the Principal Act, and the very purpose of the change of the Employment Contracts Act to change the name change in itself says a lot. It changed from a contract that is a business deal effectively, into a relationship. And calling the Act the Employment Relationships Act was actually recognising that that is what employment relationships are about. That I keep saying the relationship, but between employers and workers, it is really important that it's based on a meaningful relationship where there's mutual trust, mutual respect and fair treatment. So the very purpose of this or principle by amending an act that is based on relationships where there is transparency and honesty, to actually go to a draconian, old-fashioned way of requiring, a very old-fashioned way of requiring no idea whatsoever, of requiring a rather long, undulated process for doing what unions already do, and also costly. It is a costly process. The reality is, Mr Chair, that frankly, if workers on the rare time, well, it's not so rare now that the national government's in, but the rare time that workers did go on strike, and that's something as a union official that I treated very seriously, because you are actually asking workers, or one is asking workers to actually not to cut a day or whatever's pay, and it is not something in these harsh economic times that any union official takes lightly. And so that of course there is a secret ballot, and this presumption from Tau Henare, who is actually, without being too mean about it, is actually a little teensy bit of a bully, and his assumption is that that's the way union officials operate as well.
Point of order, Todd McLean.
I take offence to that. He's not a little bit of a bully.
No, look, this is the member that was reflection against had the opportunity, and he didn't take it. But I did tell the member to come back. We're on Clause 3. And I'd like you to focus the rest of the time on Clause 3.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I actually will focus on Clause 3. I actually thought, Mr Chair, that's what I was really doing, because I was talking about amending the Employment Relations Act, which is based on relationships, and bringing in a draconian, old-fashioned, I'm sure that's acceptable to the member, old-fashioned way of dealing with the relationships. So it is at odds with the principles of the Act. And it's interesting, because if we look at the amendments of the Employment Relations Act, I feel quite a bit of pride that the amendments that were made under Labor actually improved the Act. They improved it. Then we see something like the 90-day Fire at Will Act, which was actually, I believe, an amendment to the Employment Relations Act. Am I right there? So I'm still on track here, Mr Chair. And that amendment is at odds with the very principal Act that is being amended. And that is my point. And I'd be very, very interested to have the member who's put this bill before the House take a call on this, and just perhaps reassure the House, or try and convince us in some way or another just what it's all about. Because it just does not make sense. And what I would say is that if the member is willing to take a call, I think that we could go into much more detail about the Act that's being amended. Perhaps the member would like to take a call and explain what the Employment Relations Act means to that member. Perhaps members on the other side of the House, instead of flippantly taking closure motions, would like to actually stand up and take a call. Mr Chair.
The question is that the question be now put. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Party vote's called for. I'll ask the clerk for a party vote.
New Zealand National.
57 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
42 votes opposed.
Green Party.
9 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
5 votes in favour.
Māori Party.
3 votes opposed.
Progressive.
1 vote opposed.
United Future.
1 vote in favour.
Mana.
1 vote opposed.
Honourable Chris Carter.
1 vote opposed.
Members, the ayes are 63, the noes are 57. The motion is agreed to. So the question is that Clause 3 stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Ayes have it. Party vote's called for. Ask the clerk to conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
57 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
42 votes opposed.
Green Party.
9 votes opposed.
Act New Zealand.
5 votes in favour.
Māori Party.
3 votes opposed.
Progressive.
1 vote opposed.
United Future.
1 vote in favour.
Mana.
1 vote opposed.
Honourable Chris Carter.
1 vote opposed.
Members, the ayes are 63, the noes are 57. Clause 3 will stand part. We now move to Clause 4. Now, this is a very narrow debate. So the question is, does Clause 4 stand part? I call Darian Fenton.
Thank you. Mr Chair, well, Clause 4 is about the purpose of the bill. I'll just take your advice on that. You said it was a narrow debate. Mr Chair, point of order, so can I just get an explanation about why it's a narrow debate, given that it's about the purpose?
Well, just look at it. It requires unions to hold a secret ballot of its members. So you can't talk about other things other than what Clause 4 actually says. So, Darian Fenton, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr Chair.